Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Extra Time TV. The Euros are continuing today. Today, James and I, we had a lot to talk about. The first match today, England, the Three Lions took on Croatia. There was a lot of talk before this game, but it ended 1-0 with a goal from Raheem Sterling. James, before we get into the details of this game, let me know your thoughts on this game.
It was an interesting game. I expected Croatia to be very rigid and strong, and I think they did. They played some nice football. I think Modric was everywhere for a period of time, but England were everything I expected, with the exception of the fact that Phillips played and he was absolutely outstanding. Really was. I thought the fact that they used Sterling, I wasn't sure. They have such a good squad. We weren't sure what Southgate was going to do, but they really they looked great. I have to say, for long periods of the game. The only criticism I would have is defensively, and Pickford, I'm not 100% sure that they're there right yet. They've got a long way to go defensively, but I think the English fans will be happy. They got the result. They probably would have wanted a goal or two extra. I thought Kane dropped off a little bit too much, in my opinion, when he should have held the line and been on Vida's shoulder. But they got the result. They got some nice chances, and they can go on to the next game feeling pretty well accomplished.
I know, James, maybe you could introduce our special guest today. We have a special someone. Tell us about this person, James.
Well, Daz Meehan is going to be giving us his thoughts. He was the technical director of Turks and Caicos, and he's a very good friend of mine. So over to Daz.
Hi everybody at EXTV, it's Daz Meehan here, former technical director of Turks and Caicos Islands Football Association. I was asked to give a little brief overview of England's performance today. Great performance throughout, from goalkeeper, back four, through the midfield, and Harry Kane up front. Against a very experienced Croatia side, I just thought our game plan was excellent throughout. We took our chances well. I thought some of the young lads who, first experience in international, the likes of Mings and the young lad from Leeds, Phillips, outstanding, especially to keep, the certain players for Croatia, quiet. I think Scotland's going to be a totally different game. We might see Grealish come into the frame for that game. Scotland are going to have, quite a defensive mind, maybe two banks of four. So somebody like Grealish, just to break the lines there. But fingers crossed, I know James is a big Scottish fan, so he'll be rooting for Scotland next week. But come on, England, here we go. Thanks, guys. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
So, there we have it, folks. Interesting opinion from Daz. So we'll definitely have some more with him a little later on in the episode. We'll talk a bit more about that, James. My opinion as well, I was not surprised that the game was close. I know Gareth Southgate has England playing, he prefers three at the back, but, went a little bit different from what I thought he would. My concern is that I'm not entirely impressed. Although John Stones can be really great. We saw in the Champions League, him now, as well as the goalkeeper. I think if there's a chink in the English team, it's going to be that. I think Gareth knows this. I think Gareth tries to play that sort of formation. And, there's a bit of flexibility with England. I wasn't there before, because they can switch from 4-3. They may not play the prettiest football. As we all know, they hardly scored. I think they didn't score any goals at all from open play in the last World Cup. You all can correct me if I'm wrong, if my memory is going a little bit. So, it's a great start for them. Croatia was a tough team. I really thought it would have been a 1-1 or something, but I think English fans would be happy. I saw as well, in typical Three Lions fashion, the media already jumping on and calling them favorites and singing "It's Coming Home." I really feel sorry for English fans sometimes, because their own hype, I think, is their own downfall. I think it's a really good squad. I think they have a really good chance of making a deep run in this tournament, more than other years. I was highly critical of them. I think the last time I was really confident about England was back in 2006, and they didn't do that well. And then we discovered why. And then also in 1998, I think Glenn Hoddle was the coach back then. I thought that was a scary team. So, this is the first team in a while that I'm thinking, okay, these guys, if these people don't take England seriously, they can be in trouble. So, just a quick look at the stats. So obviously it was a 49% possession to 50, which was interesting. If my stats are correct, there's little variables, folks. And, England played with the 4-3-3 instead of three at the back. But during the game, James, as you said, they can change. But to end things off, the absence of Harry Maguire, James, do you think that that's a major effect? Would he come back in as soon as he's ready? What do you think?
I mean, I think he's had an up and down season, obviously, at Man United, the injury he had. But I mean, I thought Mings and Stones did okay. But as I say, I still think cross balls, especially the fact that Pickford is not, that's been an area that he's had problems with in the past. So I just think that he may come in because of that. But as I say, Stones and Mings didn't do badly at all. But when they come up against stronger opposition, not that Croatia are not strong, but against the bigger teams, especially if they go into the knockout, well, that's where things will happen. But I mean, I think Southgate has everybody on their toes, and that's the interesting thing with this squad. He has so much quality. I mean, I wanted to see Grealish from right from the word go. Obviously, the fact that he put Phillips in surprised me, but Phillips was awesome. I mean, his pass rate, I think, was 100%, which was excellent. I thought Foden was good, but he blew hot and cold. I mean, he had that great chance, it hit the post. He will obviously be disappointed with it, but and even the fact that he opted the Sterling, But I think it takes momentum in a tournament, so they'll build on this. Obviously, they have to come up against us, Scotland, later on this week. That will be an interesting one because I think whereas Daz mentioned in his video, for example, that Scotland will come with 2 banks of 4. I think we have a bit more about us this time around. I think we have, because of the introduction of Che Adams to the Scotland team, we have some quick fullbacks. I think they will be very surprised with what we will bring. And we'll see it tomorrow, obviously, in the game. But getting back to England, I think they have so much quality oozing out. It will be interesting to see how Southgate manages the whole squad.
Yep, and it's some things I noticed because it's so much football, folks. I'm loving it. I mean, there's literally 4 games today: the 3 Euros and the Copa America, which we'll talk about later on. One thing I noticed was Trippier, being used on the left. I thought that was a bit odd. I thought that was a bit strange because he's naturally a right-footed player, as far as I know, and I really liked him in the last World Cup. That's when I really started to appreciate, his versatility on that side. So to me, it was strange. It's a very dominant right-footed player. You put on the left. It seemed as if, he was trying not to make mistakes because he's not a naturally left-footed player. So maybe I don't know if that was a conscious decision by Southgate. So it was interesting. I think, Andre, the reason he did it was because of set plays, personally. I mean, because you have Chilwell there, if I'm not mistaken. Who's naturally left-footed, who's had a great season. Maybe he just favours him, but I think, Trippier obviously has been a fantastic free kick specialist for a long time, his corners and stuff as well. So I think it could have been that. Obviously, he is very attacking as well. And if you think about Walker, obviously he gets forward a lot. So it can balance it in that way too. But in a sense, I was surprised, but he had a decent game as well. But again, you will only see these inadequacies necessarily when you come up against teams that will really press them, and make sure they show their defensive qualities as well. I don't think Croatia necessarily did, but we will see in the coming games. Yes, and he made an before we move forward, Kyle Walker, I guess it's hard to, he's known for being a wide player, although Pepper's kind of evolved him into, a right side of the back 3 ball playing type centre back player, which brings me to my next point before we move on to the next game. This Croatia is not the same Croatia from 2018, obviously. And I think, England will be tested because I think a player like Mandzukic, if he was still there, would have been very problematic for these centre-backs because we saw in the final, Stones, while he can be brilliant, it looked when Man City went on a great run when he was alongside Diaz, he can, depending on the type of teams you play against, struggle a little bit. So you can be brilliant, but he's not perfect. So I'm thinking, today they sort of benefited because I saw Perisic a couple times, make some runs and, there was nobody really in there to really finish off things. I think Mandzukic added that presence. So I don't think they really have that really forceful physical presence that could have hurt England today. Rebic is a player I like a lot. But, he really frustrated me in 2018 because I think he was physically strong, but his finishing was woeful. I think he has become a better player since. But I think that hurt them today. I think for, all the talent they had in midfield and, a decent team, I think England while they got a victory today, I think they are yet to be tested. And maybe James, Scotland might be their team. Who knows? I'm just fanning the flames, folks. Fanning the flames. So, we'll end things off. We'll definitely have something special because James, as you obviously may have guessed, is from Scotland. So we're going to have some fun on that game. We're going to probably do a live feed with two of us looking at the game and just have some fun. And then maybe capture some moments of James hopefully getting glory, which we'll look
in my kilt, maybe. We'll see.
Yes. I'll probably put on my Mel Gibson voice and some war paint because I have some love for Scotland. So I'll be supporting Scotland as well. So, James, moving along, the next game today, which involves a player I really like a lot. Australia took on North Macedonia. Austria, sorry, not Australia. My goodness. Austria took on North Macedonia. Folks, it's not the other country. Goals from my favorite. We spoke about him before. Goran Pandev got a goal, but unfortunately it was not enough. The game ended 3-1. What do you think? This game was a game that for a little while, it was 1-1. And, Pandev, we're going to talk about the other game, but I'm going to focus on Pandev for a couple of seconds. This guy, what a player he is. He's up there in age. He played at Inter Milan, and now I think he's at Genoa, if I'm not mistaken. But he still looks as sprightly as ever. And at one point, until, the game went the other direction, it really looked like they were probably going to pull off a draw for a small phase of the game. But, let me know your thoughts on this game.
Well, I was upset because, I had them down as a 1-1 draw. Obviously, it didn't go that way. But Pandev was excellent. I think his work rate, for a 37-year-old, I think he's, close to 38 even. His work rate was exceptional. He pounced on the mistake from the goalkeeper to score his goal, but he really put himself about. He never shirked a tackle. He ran into the channels. For a guy his age, it was exceptional. I have to say, he's probably thinking now that Austria spoiled his party because, it was set up to be his show. If they drew 1-1, people would have been talking about it. But then Austria came back. It was a great first goal they got from Liner. Great switch ball across. I think the funny thing with this game is, I think what Austria did is they lured the Macedonia goalkeeper. They kind of tricked him a little bit because if you watched before the goals, at the end, they drew him out. They floated balls in and let him come out and punch a few, let him get confident, and then that confidence built, and he kept coming out further and further. And the goals that he got, sadly, after that were because of probably him coming out a little far. So they used the whole fishing technique. You throw it in a few times, dangle it there, and they exploited that a little bit. But it was an excellent game. End-to-end stuff for long periods of the game. I thought the coaches were on par. With the exception of, I think there was one change that the coach made that I wasn't sure of, from Austria. But generally, excellent game. Was delighted for Pandev to get the score sheet, but at the end of the day, Austria deserved it.
Yes, and a player that a lot of people have been talking about, and I'm familiar with him because if I'm not mistaken, he had some time at Inter Milan for a little while. Not Pandev as well, but Arnautovic. I knew when he was young, but he was an unknown name, and he had an impact when he came on. From what I saw, and he scored a goal. So a lot of people are already calling for him to be signed. He's playing in China, if I'm not mistaken. So I was shocked because I did lose track of him. I knew he was good. And then I heard that, wait a minute, that's where he is right now, because it's amazing how some of these young talents, like Paulinho for Brazil as well, they sort of junior Oscar, young Brazilian headed across to China in his prime. So this is a guy that I think could make some waves in this tournament. But this is still the first game, so we don't want to get too excited and overhype players. We've seen this before. Teams started off really well, and things went downhill. So just a quick pull up of the stats here. Austria had 63% possession, while Macedonia had 36%. And in terms of formations, it seems as if the three at the back is starting to become popular again. Like I said in my last video, I think a lot of people, turned their nose up on me when I spoke about three at the back, but it's really starting to become more mainstream. The 4-5-2 and the I mean, the 4-4-2 and the 4-5-1 seem to be the go-to formations up until, maybe a couple of years ago. And now teams are not afraid to do three at the back, with the two wide players that could switch, if they need to get offensive, which it's a formation I really like. So I'm very happy that, people are starting to understand, the flexibility of this formation. And, this is another example of two teams that are, really going for this formation. But interesting. We'll see how it goes. Will Goran Pandev have a bounce back in the next game? We'll see. So, James, we'll head on to the other game, which is Netherlands, the game of the day for me. The games I was looking forward to. Netherlands versus Ukraine. Everybody's talking about Frank de Boer, and there was a plane flying over the training session telling him to play the 4-3-3 because, building on what I just said, he's playing the three at the back with basically five players, three centre backs with two wide players, and mostly a defensive position. And, they got a very uncomfortable 3-2 victory. At one point, it looked like they threw away the game. It was going to be a 2-2 draw. For the Netherlands, it was Wijnaldum scoring in the 52nd minute. And then in the 58th and the 85th minute, they got two more goals. But Shevchenko and his men, and he wasn't playing, folks. I think he did a good job. I looked at one point, they really looked like they were brilliant. This Ukraine team looks like when they played and, it was 2-2, you could see this is a team that has the ingredients. They're not going to win the Euros, but this is a team that could hurt anyone. And to be honest, I think they could have they probably could feel hard done about, fighting to get that equalizer and then losing like that. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I think you're right what you say about Ukraine. I mean, I think the problem they had is they raised the tempo and then dropped the tempo, and they kept doing this. So, for example, right from the one go, they looked good. I think Sketelberg had a save right at the start. Obviously, we're surprised that he even played because obviously Sillenson everybody expected him to play for Holland, But this game was fantastic. I mean, De Boer has a lot of critics. He came in at a stage, that people wanted somebody else, but he has been very diplomatic, let's say, and very rigid in the way he plays. But I liked it today. I mean, I got to see them against Scotland last week, and I was impressed. I mean, I think Memphis Depay is absolutely exceptional. I think he was really good in this game. He got on the ball. Wijnaldum, the captain, was exceptional. But Holland, they played well, but then he just switched off. It was strange. I mean, they were in complete control. Dumfries was brilliant on the right. Everybody was having a good game, and then something just clicked. Ukraine stepped up again, and they just couldn't handle Ukraine. And obviously, at one point, it was looking like it was going to be 2-2. I mean, that first goal for Ukraine was absolutely sensational from Yarmolenko. Brilliant. But obviously, Dumfries came up at the end. I mean, it's a good Scottish place, that Dumfries. Mm-hmm. But he came in with that goal at the back post, and it was a great finish. But there was a lot of strange things I found with this Netherlands team. A lot of people are saying Weghorst is not a very good player. I thought he played pretty well. I mean, he's big, he's lanky, doesn't look necessarily like an athlete, but was good. I think he ran into channels. He got his goal. I mean, as I say, Depay was phenomenal to me. I don't understand why they didn't use him more in the closing stages of the game. They switched the way they were playing. But the Netherlands have to play to their strengths. I mean, this could be a team that go on and find momentum and really, really, I mean, they were a team who weren't talking about winning it or anything like that. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but they could really push the big guns. I mean, I'm not saying they're not a big gun now because they were in the past. I think they could get back there if they get the momentum. But Ukraine as well, if they find a result or two, this is a great young team as well.
Yep, and before we move on to chatting about this a little more, James, I believe we have a special guest today. One of our fans gives us a unique insight into this. James, introduce our special guest today.
So we have Yasser Bash, a good friend of mine as well, a Dutch Trini, which is very unique that in itself. So he's going to give us his words on what he thought about the Holland game, or the Netherlands game, sorry. So over to you, Yasser.
Hey guys, so we won the game, which is the most important thing. To be honest with you, I thought played pretty well moving forward, but we seemed a bit nervous in our defensive aspects, especially in the defensive midfield areas, because we allowed Ukraine to move a little bit too close to our own box into our defensive areas. And very often you saw the players were not willing to make the necessary tackles, so they played a more zoning type of football around the box. And players such as Daron needed to fall a little bit deeper, or in the defensive line, keep the defensive line a bit higher in the case of the ball movement when it's coming towards us. So you saw time and time again, the first half, when the Ukrainians did move toward our end, that there were some small gaps, even though we were eventually able to close them down. But that is why in the second half, when the Ukrainians scored their first goal, it was primarily because there were too many gaps just in front of our defensive area, our box. And there was too much space, and he was able to score, well, what was frankly a brilliant goal, to be honest. The second goal that we conceded was primarily because, again, out of position and lacking our two major defenders, which is Van Dijk and Matthijs de Ligt. However, I do believe that moving forward, now that we've actually won the game, the team can now focus on where we had some weaknesses, close those gaps. I think you will see from Frank, he will make the changes, not necessarily in personnel, but in terms of tightening up the defensive midfield area. I remember those years when we had players such as Edgar Davids, Nigel de Jong. I mean, those guys were real beasts, and they kept it really tight at the back. Not that Martin de Roon is not good, but I think with the 5-3-2, you are seeing those gaps there, because de Roon is, in my opinion, I can be wrong, a little bit out of place, and allowing that gap to occur too often. But moving forward, I mean, you saw Dutch football at some of its brilliance. They moved really well. The flanks were excellent. Dumfries was awesome, with the exception of the header, the blatant header that he missed. And I was very proud of the guys today. They showed a lot of heart. It's a team that's been building for the last 2 years. I found it particularly unfortunate that Ronald Koeman went to Barcelona, and then Frank de Boer took over. And in Holland, there's been a lot of talk, lack of confidence about Frank de Boer, who is the coach, the current bonds coach of Nederland. And you see with Frank having coached the side now, you are seeing his style coming into play, but I think there's still a lot of work to do. And that is why, I mean, for me, and particularly, I'm happy with the group phase in the sense that we, having won the first match, we can now focus on the following two matches and can grow in the following two matches, because most likely we're going to meet Deutschland, Germany in the second round, as if I calculated correctly. And beaten them in the last 2 years, twice in the last year. And I think we can do it again. Except that we must be very focused. And you can beat Germany then in the second round, then you have a very good chance of maybe even reaching the final. And of course, I'm Dutch. People will say I'm biased. We'll see how that goes, yeah? But yeah, Nederland. Kom op, jongens. Hip, hip, Holland.
All right, folks. So, what we'll do is he'll be the first of many. If you'd like to send us videos about your team, we'll squeeze it into the show. And, that's brilliant. He clearly loves his team. And, I'm sure there are lots of fans. I know there's a lot of Three Lions fans, and we know there's maybe some other Scottish fans besides James, maybe. So feel free to send us some videos. You can send it to us directly. You can email it to us at extratimetvtt@gmail.com. Various ways, send them in and we'll put them on, because I know there's a lot of passionate fans out there who have their opinions and they don't necessarily have to agree with us. So, our fan analysts can join in. So, James, just to end things off with this game, obviously a lot of people are talking about the absence of, Virgil van Dijk, but still, before I get into all that, I know Frank de Boer is a coach that people accuse of being really stubborn and things like that. But, and I know for those of you who don't know, his brother Ronald, they're twins, the Dutch duo. So a lot of people are saying, Ronald de Boer is actually Frank. Do you think that he needs to make any changes moving forward, or do you think he should stick to his guns? Because another guy told me as well, who follows the Netherlands is that he's working with the players they have. The Dutch is associated with the 43, Cruyff, that sort of thing. But, the boys basically conceding that, they don't probably have the players that they had before, the Edgar Davids and the Dennis Bergkamps and, the Patrick Kluiverts and, the Van Nistelrooys and the Yapstams, that he's playing a team based on what he has. And it may not be the prettiest football, but it's the best for the team. Do you agree with that statement?
I agree. At the end of the day, if you win games, that's what's most important as a coach. Frank de Boer will be building towards, at the end of the day, with this result now, they'll be looking, for example, at the knockout stages now, They say once you get 3 points, you're virtually there. So they'll be looking maybe to pick up a point. They'll want to win them all, but they'll be starting to look at that. Now, confidence comes with games. As I say, with the exception probably of the cross goal that Ukraine, the second goal they got, which was definitely suspect. The first goal from Ukraine was sensational. So that's one thing they have to think about. So they'll get some time on the training ground to work on that. I'm not so sure they have a lot of cover defensively. I would have liked if they had De Ligt, for example, etc. to come in there. A big centre back who can come and win that ball. I think with the absence there, and obviously with Van Dijk not there as well, it's a problem, But I think Wijnaldum was phenomenal as captain. And I think one of the issues I had is I noticed in the two of the games today, coaches making substitutes and they're not really necessarily making an impact. And that's something like I saw Ukraine. What I liked is, and people will, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Shevchenko made a substitute. I can't remember who he brought on. And then he took the substitute off because he realised the substitute that he brought on was not covering back enough. And then he switched it again. Coaches need to not be scared to change things even if it's a substitute. And I think this is something that coaches have to learn. Frank de Boer is very experienced, so I think there will be a little tinkering, but I think he will be confident he got the result. As I say, they have to eradicate the mistakes, but it's better to make the mistakes now in the group stages rather than in the knockout stages. So I think Netherlands will build on this for the future games.
Yep. So, while I'm reading this, the news came up. So it popped up on my phone. Blind admits he almost pulled out of Netherlands Euro 2020 opener after Eriksen hospitalization. So you see, listen, literally as I said it, it popped up on goal.com as well. So I'm going to take a quick, we weren't going to talk about this, but I think it's relevant with the situation. So basically, this is what he said. I had to overcome a mental hurdle to play, Blind admitted. I'm proud that I did it. Then eventually the emotions comes out. To see what happened that had such an impact for me, there were things that I recognized that made it all the more intense, which we spoke about this yesterday, James. We couldn't look at it. I had a personal issue that was very similar, so I could understand that. To hear that he's doing well now gives everyone the strength to be able to play on anyway. As for his future, please leave it alone. So, I was mentioning this, this guy had this situation. And, unfortunately, I had a feeling he was going to say something because he was literally the first player I thought of when this thing happened with Eriksen. So, I said Danny earlier. It's actually not Danny. It's Daly. But just making sure, folks. But, he's, that's very interesting because it further underlines how this thing affects his teammates. I know Lukaku as well mentioned that, he was really upset and, it took a lot of courage for him to continue. So, we'll definitely talk about this in detail later on, James, as we said before, but I just thought I would throw that in and, we'll see how the Netherlands continue into this tournament. So, we head over to another game, another tournament in South America. The Copa America kicked off today, James. It's very hard for us to look at all the games, but James and I are trying. Brazil kicked off the Copa America, which is started off in, controversial fashion because a lot of people think it should be canceled altogether. Even the logo, it's in Brazil, but it's still saying Argentina, Colombia. It's such a mess. It's a hot mess, folks. You can let us know what you think. They canceled it in Colombia because of civil unrest. It was going to be only in Argentina, and then they stopped it in Argentina because the COVID-19 situation is out of control there. Only to put it in Brazil, which is situation is not much better. So, that's even the Brazilians didn't want to do it. So, folks, there's a humanitarian aspect to this. Where do you draw the line? I know we're going to talk about the game, but this is something it's shocking a lot of people. I'm hoping the tournament goes along as it should and nothing happens. I would never wish to get my point proven correctly. Like, we shouldn't have had it in Brazil. Let's see what happened. I'm thinking, these guys are high profile athletes, but, a lot of teams have been affected. Venezuela, some of the players from the Argentine team, their goalkeeper, Franco Armani, and the River Plate team, which we spoke about that a couple of weeks ago, where the on-field player Enzo Perez had to play as a goalkeeper in a Copa Libertadores game. So, it started with all that, and Brazil got a 3-0 victory over Venezuela. It's a heavily depleted Venezuela, which we'll get into shortly. So Marquinhos in the 23rd minute, Neymar got a penalty in the 64th minute, and Gabriel Barbosa in the 89th minute. Gabriel Barbosa is a player that was supposed to be the next big thing and hasn't really quite panned out yet. He went to Inter Milan, didn't really work. James, I know it's difficult for all of us to look at all the games, but what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, first of all, just to touch on what you said, I think sometimes these tournament organisers have to think about the human side. And even from what happened yesterday with regards to the game playing and all these things, I think we have to have a heart sometimes. And as I say, we don't want to touch too much on that because you covered most of it, but it's something they should have probably thought about. Coming to the game, I watched a little bit of it. It was a very fiery affair. Lots of tackles flying in, yellow cards, that kind of thing. Obviously, we said that Neymar, I like Barbosa a lot. I thought he was a player that was going to light up, but he did not. And Marquinhos. So I think Brazil obviously are happy with the result. Venezuela were heavily depleted as what I saw. But as I say, it's sad that we're talking about things off the field and not necessarily on the field. That's one thing I would say about it. But again, Brazil will be happy and they'll be trying to take it into the next game. So yeah.
Yep, and Brazil went with their usual 4-3-3. And listen, Brazil, they've come to win this tournament, even though the players, have expressed their strong opinions about not playing in this tournament. They played with their 4-3-3. They had Alisson and Casemiro on the field, Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, and all these guys, Danilo. And, Venezuela tried their best with a depleted team. And I think it was only going to be another one result in this, James, because make no mistake, Venezuela is a very strong team. They are a strong team. They are South American football. All the stereotypes that you all think, it's gone. Anybody can beat anybody in Venezuela. I know there's a lot of controversy surrounding the last couple of Copa Americas with Brazil, in terms of the incident with the president interfering with the VAR in the Argentina game and things like that, which, a lot of people have a raised eyebrow looking at a tournament being held in Brazil. So like James said, we have to speak about so many things beside football. Brazil started off really well. I think that's the perfect result for them to start things off with. And, tomorrow there's other games, Argentina versus Chile and so on. So we'll talk about those. So, James, football all around the planet. We've had European football. We have South American football. There's so much football to talk about, folks. And, with all this football, James and I will try to keep you all updated daily. We'll have our live episode, which will be aired on Facebook and on YouTube, which is fully interactive. You all can chat while it's going on and give your questions, which we'll try to read as much as possible and really answer the questions while we can. And, share and get your friends to watch and support us, because it really helps the channel, folks. So, James, moving along to something of a more humanitarian nature. I know you had a very specific topic that we need to bring up today. Let's hear about it, James.
Yeah, after talking to Daz today, obviously he did our video for the England game. So we just want to send a good luck and all the best to Daz and all the pros that will be taking part in the charity game, which is for Blue Skies and the young Jordan Banks. Now, I did some research. Young Jordan Banks died in England from a lightning strike, actually, it looks like. So we're sending our thoughts on that with the family. Obviously, this is a great event. We hope everybody can come out and support them. And really make this a great day for this charity. And as I say, all the best to Daz and the guys. So as I say, I hope our fans can also give them a little bit of a shout out as well. And as I say, all of our love and our praise goes to Dan and the guys for doing this as well.
Yes, and in all the football and, with everything that's happened in the world and in the last couple of days, it's always a reminder that sometimes, the game comes secondary, with Ericsson and in this particular situation that we're talking about here. It's very important to remember the humanitarian aspect. It's very easy for us to forget. And, we are constantly getting reminders, and it's, it's important for us to support these things and support each other and, keep that human element in us that, makes us, human and caring for each other. So I'll put some more information in the link in the description below for that. And also, we'll probably definitely have some a further episode about, the cardiovascular issues that seem to be highly prevalent in football. So, folks, like I said, don't forget to subscribe, comment in the section below. And also check out, we'll be having some articles on extvmedia.com. We're revamping the website. And also don't forget to send in your fan videos. That's a lot of fun. We have a lot of coaches from all over the planet helping us out. So in addition to the ones we have already, we definitely are trying to reach everyone across the planet because that's a wonderful technology we have, James. So James, that's the end of our wrap up for day 2. And we'll definitely be doing it tomorrow as well because we have the Copa America and the Euros, folks. Like I said, lots of football. I know everyone's stuck at home. It's not fun to be stuck at home, but we're going to try to have fun. Unfortunately for us, football fans, there's a lot of football to watch. So James, as always, it's been a pleasure. And
everybody has to support the Tartan Army tomorrow. So there you go.
Yes, James, of course. I know James is going to slip that in. I was going to say James was a bit quiet. I was waiting for that. So we'll have some fun tomorrow, James. We'll have a poll about who's going to win. And maybe James and I will try to see if we can do some sort of live thing where we just capture us in our element looking at the game. It's not going to be scripted at all. It's going to be very raw footage, and we'll talk, and then we'll have a reaction after the game. So I'll be supporting James and his team tomorrow as well. So I'll officially, as of tomorrow, I'll be Scottish. So folks, thank you for joining us. And James, good luck tomorrow. Just a reminder, everyone, for more episodes with Shaka Hislop, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe for more updates, interviews, and content.